Battery technology is coming on at great speed when you consider that there was something shy of 400,000 battery-driven vehicles produced in 2017, and expectations are for something like 24 million a year by 2030. Battery technology has still got to go a long way in order to be able to make sure that it can continue to supply the right sort of batteries for those vehicles that are likely to be powering us around our cities and around the world in years to come. John Meyer joins us now with some more analysis of one of the key components that we've spoken about before actually in batteries, and this is lithium. Lithium in the news again. In fact, you've drawn out some research, I know, from Warwick University, which has given an extra steer to lithium. But let's take a look first of all at the lithium market and where things are at the moment in terms of pricing.
Well, the demand is still very strong, still outstripping supply. Prices in China are still way in excess, or spot prices are way in excess of what we would normally see in the broader commercial market. And I think it's likely to remain that way for some years. We saw news that SQM, the world's largest lithium producer, was going to ramp up production in future years. So it now has permission from the Chilean government to do that. That has dampened a certain amount of speculation in the market, which I think is good news. I won't say it pricked the bubble, it just deflated it a bit. So I think there's still lots of opportunity because this is a market that is big enough, maybe not for everyone, but certainly for a lot of new producing mining companies to come through. You referred to Bacanora earlier, but there are others. I think hard rock producers are going to be easier to finance at the end of the day. The capital cost is lower, although ongoing production rates are slightly higher, but I think that suits the industry at the moment. There is a risk that SQM could flood the market, but in my view it's not likely because in order to flood the market you have to have almost everybody coming into production, and that simply won't happen.
Yeah. Talking at the top about the technologies, you mentioned about the financing aspect of it. The chemistry that goes into a battery, at the moment lithium is the product that a lot of people are talking about. Of course there are other metals that go into a battery. What is it first of all that lithium does that other metals don't do as well?
Well, lithium is great for ion exchange and power storage in effect. So you want to charge up the lithium metal as best you can, and then you need other elements around that to ensure that remains stable. So cobalt is essential. Some people have talked about using a range of salts to maintain the stability, and a few other bits and pieces that go in, and it's all wrapped around to create the classic battery that we know. And when Tesla, for example, builds these huge battery packs for grid storage, they're just bolting together tens of thousands, in some cases 1 million, of the individual cells into a battery storage unit. So we're all using the same stuff from a lithium torch to a Tesla car to a battery grid storage unit. But the chemistries may change going forwards in order to reduce the amount of cobalt mainly that goes into the battery, but to introduce a few other elements to help stabilize the batteries and enable faster charging going forwards.
Well, I think that's the thing, isn't it? As we move into the electric car area, which of course a lot of people are now beginning to adopt, we want to make it a lot easier for people to, as you say, charge, the speed of charge, the way in which it holds charge, the length of the journey you can undertake as well. What is it that Warwick has come up with which gives us a little bit more encouragement that this area is the right area to follow?
Well, Warwick have come up with a sensor that you combine into the battery that tells you a bit more about what's going on in that battery cell as you recharge it. And that means that you can manage things better, and they reckon you can recharge up to five times faster, presumably on a conventional battery. But there are other things coming into the sector as well that I think will also help to increase charging. So the idea of having a sensor that's wrapped into the battery is brilliant. More management is going to create better battery life, faster charging times, just better management all round. And we know that Tesla battery units in their cars have actually been working better than previously forecast. So that means that the management units are working quite well so far, and that lithium batteries can actually outlive their stated lives, which is good news if you're buying one of the vehicles.
And of course another thing we've spoken about in previous interviews is another part of this story is copper and the way in which electricity is fed around the system. At the moment it's all very well having a battery that might charge double, triple, quadruple the speed, but if you haven't got the power going in, the electric grid in this country and around the world just can't cope with this amount of potential drawing of energy.
When you buy a Tesla, you get a slow charger, and you can buy a pay extra and get a fast charger. If you install the fast charger, you want to be sure you've got sufficient cabling to manage that, because it's an 11 kilowatt charger. You don't want your copper cables going into your house getting too hot. If you're charging your car, you put on the washing machine and the kettle, you're going to blow the fuse, and that's not great news. However, you are going to charge your car quite quickly. And I think that the systems available to people are good. They are useful and they work. But let's say everybody in your street suddenly buys one of these cars and they're all trying to charge them up, then the grid's going to have a problem. So I think there's going to have to be a lot of recabling of our cities, our houses, and of course don't forget the amount of extra copper going into the vehicles as well.
We mentioned cars, but in fact I know also your research has come up with the fact that there's also now aeroplanes or small aeroplane type taxis that are potentially coming onto the market. How far away are they realistically?
Well, there is a trial going on in Dubai at the moment, and there's a small German company that's just come up with a vertical takeoff taxi. It's a mini aeroplane with a series of small electric fans in it, and it's powered by a lithium battery, and they reckon it's going to do 200 miles an hour and run for 90 minutes. I mean, this is looking really rather good, and actually like something that's quite tangible.
Yeah, that's going to be a whole set of new rules, doubtless, governing us in the air. I mean, that's something else we've got to consider at a later date. But broadly speaking, lithium is one to back at the moment?
I think so. I think although we've got this looming giant producer that's going to produce a bit more, I still think there's going to be room in the market for a range of new lithium producers on top of that.
So which stocks should we be watching in the lithium space?
Well, there aren't a lot of choices in the London market, but if we look at cobalt, there's African Battery Metals, which is evaluating ground in the DRC, where there is ongoing cobalt production out of artisanal mining right now. So we know the metal is there, we just don't know how much there is and what the extent of it is exactly. But I'm quite hopeful about that one. Then if we look at lithium, there's Kodal Minerals, another client of ours, and that's proving up a lithium resource in Mali. Mali's a good quality country from a mining perspective, and that project is right next door to a bigger lithium project that's run by Borimian Limited. Borimian Limited was subject to a takeover offer last year by a Chinese group. Sadly, the Chinese group couldn't get the money out of China at the time, and that offer fell away. Those Chinese people then came over to Kodal Minerals and started investing in their project. And I think more will happen there. In fact, it's possible that one might combine the two projects to create a super large lithium project in Mali, or perhaps you'll get two mines instead of one, who knows.
John, thanks indeed for joining us. John Meyer is a mining analyst and partner at SP Angel, taking us through some of the progress made in the lithium space. Subscribe to IG for educational content, company insight, financial analysis and expert commentary.